Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something most people are too scared to say out loud. You have been taught your whole life that if you want a man to love you, you must protect his ego at all costs. Stroke it, feed it, soften everything you feel so you don't bruise him. Smile when you're hurting. Say, "It's fine," when it's not. Lower your standards so he doesn't feel small next to a powerful woman. You have been told your whole life that if you want a man to love you, you must make him feel big, important, untouchable. You were taught to soften your voice, shrink your needs, smile when you're hurt, and swallow your truth so his pride doesn't get bruised. You were told that if you keep him comfortable, he will stay. But here's the reality you were never taught. Men don't fall madly in love with comfort. They fall madly in love with respect. And a woman who constantly pampers his ego at the cost of her own dignity is not respected, she's used. When you overprotect his ego, you train him to believe that he is the sun, and you are just lucky to orbit around him. You laugh at jokes that cut you. You tell yourself he didn't mean it when he disrespects your time. You accept last-minute plans, inconsistent effort, half-hearted apologies. You keep giving all of yourself in exchange for crumbs, and each time you do, his ego grows, but his love doesn't. His ego hears, "I can keep doing this, and she'll never leave." His heart hears, "I don't have to rise. I can stay exactly how I am." A man does not fall head over heels for the woman who always makes him right. He falls for the woman who is brave enough to tell him the truth. The woman who says, "That hurt," when it hurts. The woman who says, "That doesn't work for me," when it doesn't. The woman who can see his greatness and also refuse to excuse his laziness. The woman who can love him deeply without lowering the bar of how she deserves to be treated. That woman doesn't attack him, but she also doesn't protect him from reality. She refuses to worship his ego because she's too busy respecting herself. Self-respect is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the quiet, steady decision to stop abandoning your own needs just to keep him comfortable. It's not about walking around saying, "I don't need anyone." It's about knowing, "I need honesty, consistency, effort, and I am not going to betray myself by pretending I don't." When a man meets a woman like that, something shifts inside him. He can't sleepwalk through the relationship. He can't rely on charm and apologies alone. He can't treat her like an option while she treats him like a priority, because she will feel the imbalance and she will step back. That step back is what challenges his ego and awakens his deeper self. When she doesn't answer every late night text. When she doesn't reward his bare minimum with her maximum. When she doesn't light up at the same empty promises she's heard before. His ego feels the sting, yes, but his heart feels something else, admiration. He may not use that word. He may even be frustrated at first, but he will think about her. He will replay her words. He will remember that she didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't cling. She simply didn't participate in anything that required her to shrink. A man falls in love, truly in love, when he realizes he cannot buy a woman's presence with crumbs. When he understands that her affection is not a right, it's a privilege. When he sees that she is capable of walking away from anything that asks her to sacrifice her peace, her values, or her self-worth. That doesn't make her hard. It makes her clear. He knows that if she chooses him, it's not because she's afraid of being alone or desperate for validation. It's because she genuinely sees something in him that matches what she gives. You are not easier to love when you are easier to use. You are not more attractive when you silently endure behavior that breaks your heart. You are not more worthy when you sacrifice everything to protect his pride. The woman he will love madly is the one who can look him in the eye and say, "I see who you can be, but I will not lower who I am while you refuse to grow." That sentence may bruise his ego, but it nourishes his respect. And respect is the soil where real love grows. The secret is this: you don't have to hurt him to be powerful, but you will hurt his ego when you stop lying to yourself. When his comfort is no longer your God, when you stop covering his patterns with excuses, when you stop rewarding inconsistency with your loyalty, that's when he is forced to confront the truth, not just about you, but about himself. Some men will run from that mirror. Let them. The man capable of loving you will look into it, adjust his reflection, and rise, not because you worshipped his ego, but because you honored yourself. Hurt his ego, in a healthy way, means this: you stop feeding the fantasy that he can show up however he wants and still have all of you. His illusion is simple and powerful. I can give the bare minimum, and she will still give me her maximum. That illusion doesn't come from nowhere, we help build it. Every time you ignore what you feel, every time you reward half effort with full access, every time you let him slip back in with a lazy A, after disappearing, you help his ego believe the lie that he doesn't have to grow to keep you. He doesn't have to be consistent. He doesn't have to be emotionally present. He doesn't have to meet you where you are. He can do the least and still get the most. Hurting that ego is not yelling, attacking, or emasculating him. It's much more powerful and much quieter than that. It is a calm refusal to continue being available at a discount. It is the moment you decide inside yourself first, I will no longer let someone access my body, my time, my energy, and my heart while putting the effort of a guest and not a partner. When you make that shift, his illusion begins to crack. The rules of engagement change. Comfort is replaced with clarity. He no longer gets VIP treatment with a general ticket. Think about how often you've trained him to believe this illusion. He cancels at the last minute and you say, "It's okay, I understand," even while your chest aches. He doesn't text all day and then sends a random message at night, and you instantly reply, pouring all your warmth into that tiny opening. He doesn't define the relationship, but still gets all the benefits of one. No matter how little he invests, he still gets your body, your emotional support, your attention, your loyalty. His ego learns, my effort doesn't determine my access, her feelings do. As long as she loves me, I can relax. Healthy ego pain begins the first time that pattern doesn't work anymore. He tries the same move and hits a boundary he's never met from you before. He texts at midnight and you don't reply until the next day with a short, neutral answer. He suggests meeting up last minute and you say, "No, I need more notice. My time is valuable." He disappears for days and comes back like nothing happened. And instead of melting, you address it. That doesn't work for me. I need consistency. In those moments, you're not punishing him. You're just no longer subsidizing his comfort at the cost of your self-respect. His ego feels that as a sting because the old illusion is breaking down. That sting is important. For a man who's been allowed to coast, the first experience of a real consequence feels like an injury. His first instinct might be defensiveness. Wow, you've changed. You're overreacting. You used to be supportive. But beneath that defense is a deeper awareness forming. I can't treat her like a guarantee anymore. The illusion that you will always be there, no matter how he shows up, starts to die. That's where respect is born. He may not like the boundary, but he cannot ignore it. And what we cannot ignore, we cannot fully dismiss. By letting his illusion shatter, you are holding up a clear mirror. The message is simple: your level of access to me will always match your level of effort and integrity. Not your charm, not your potential, not your excuses, your behavior. That message doesn't crush a healthy man, it calls him higher. If he is capable of more, your boundary will challenge his ego enough to wake him up. He will have to ask himself hard questions. Do I actually want this woman in my life? If I do, am I willing to rise to the standard she lives by? That discomfort is not cruelty, it's a catalyst. You are not responsible for how he responds to that catalyst. Some men will walk away instead of growing. Let them. Their exit is not a sign that you ask for too much. It's proof they were invested in the illusion, not in the reality of loving a whole, self-respecting woman. The man who can love you deeply will feel that same ego pain and move through it, not around it. He will adjust his actions, not try to negotiate your standards down. He will understand that access to your body, your time, your energy, and your heart is a privilege, not a consolation prize he gets just for showing up. So when we say, hurt his ego, we are not talking about attacking his worth. We are talking about refusing to protect a story that says he can give the bare minimum and still own the best parts of you. That story has cost you too much. It has drained you, confused you, and kept you stuck in cycles where you were loving for two. Letting that story die will bruise his ego, yes, but it will save your soul. And the man who is truly meant to love you madly will not resent you for that. He will rise to meet the woman who finally chose herself. There is a moment in every powerful woman's life where she quietly crosses an invisible line inside herself and everything changes. Even if nothing looks different outside yet, it's the moment she decides, not in theory, but in her bones, I will not lose myself again just to keep a man. Up until that moment, almost every choice you made around him was driven by one fear, the fear of losing him. You softened your truth so he wouldn't get upset. You tolerated mixed signals so he wouldn't pull away. You forgave without change so he wouldn't call you dramatic or too much. You bent your standards because the idea of him walking away felt like death. You weren't just trying to love him. You were trying to secure your own worth through his presence. When a man senses that, even unconsciously, he relaxes in all the wrong ways. He may care about you, he may enjoy you, but he knows on some level that you are more afraid of losing him than you are of losing your self-respect. That gives his ego a safety net. He doesn't have to be intentional, because you'll stay. He doesn't have to be consistent, because you'll rationalize. He doesn't have to choose you clearly, because you'll keep choosing him anyway. There is no real risk for him, and without risk, there is no obsession, there is convenience. The shift happens when the fear flips, when your fear of abandoning yourself becomes bigger than your fear of losing him. That doesn't always start with a big speech. It starts with quiet truths you can't unknow. The day you look at your own reflection and admit, I don't like who I'm becoming in this dynamic. The night you cry and, instead of asking, why doesn't he love me more? You ask, why am I okay with being loved this little? The moment you realize that the real loss is not him leaving, it's you leaving yourself over and over again to keep him comfortable. That's when your standards stop being negotiable ideas and start becoming non-negotiable boundaries. A man becomes obsessed with a woman when he realizes her standards are not a performance or a phase, they are her way of living. When he pushes, tests, or slips, and instead of you collapsing into panic and over-explaining, you stay calm and anchored in what you know you deserve. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not playing hard to get, you're hard to lose, because losing you means losing a woman who will not participate in her own disrespect. He starts to feel something he didn't feel when you were terrified of losing him. He feels that being in your life is not guaranteed. That feeling changes everything in his psychology. As long as he believes you will stay no matter how he shows up, his focus is on managing his own comfort. Once he understands, truly, that you are willing to walk away rather than betray yourself, his focus shifts to managing his effort. He has to think about how he shows up, what he says, whether his actions line up with his words, because now there are consequences that actually matter losing you. Not losing your body for a night. Losing the woman who sees him, challenges him, inspires him, and will not lie to herself just to keep him around. This is the secret nobody tells you. Standards are not walls to keep men out. They are filters to reveal who is capable of loving you. When you live by them, you don't have to scream, post quotes, or threaten to leave. Your consistency becomes the loudest message in the room. He asks for something that violates your value system. You don't attack him, you just say, no, that's not aligned with who I am. He disappears and returns casually. You don't punish him. You simply don't reward the behavior with the same access he once had. He tries to pull you into chaos, and you respond with grounded truth instead of emotional chaos back. Over time, he learns that your love is deep, but it is not desperate, and deep without desperate is what makes you unforgettable. There's a different kind of magnetism in a woman who is not negotiating her worth. She can love deeply, laugh loudly, be soft and open, but underneath all of that there is a steel line. If being with you requires me to abandon the best parts of myself, I will choose myself. A man feels that. It unsettles his ego, but it awakens his heart. He realizes that you are not a woman he can keep by doing the bare minimum. You are a woman whose presence demands that he either grow or lose you. That's where obsession is born, in the collision between his desire for you and the awareness that he does not own you. You become the woman he thinks about when he's alone. Not because you chased, begged, or tolerated everything, but because you didn't. Because you were willing to risk his opinion of you in order to stay in alignment with your own. Because you walked away from moments where old you would have stayed. Because you didn't just talk about standards on social media. You lived them when it hurt. He may not say it out loud, but he feels it deeply. You are not another woman he can take for granted. You are the woman he will either rise for or lose. And that reality is what makes you linger in his mind long after the text thread goes quiet. There is a very specific shift that happens when you stop being the woman who drops everything the second he calls, and you become the woman whose time and energy actually means something. For so long, you trained his nervous system to believe that he could show up whenever, however, and you would always be ready, always available, always on standby. He could send a "you up" text at midnight, and even if you were tired, even if you were hurt, even if he'd ignored you for 3 days, you would answer. He could cancel plans last minute, then casually reappear as if nothing happened, and you'd still make room for him. You thought that kind of devotion would make him love you more, but in reality it made his ego feel safe and lazy. No matter what I do, she'll be there. There was no sting, no friction, no reason for him to examine himself, because you absorbed all the discomfort for both of you. The first time you don't respond instantly, his ego feels it like a tiny bruise. He's used to your name popping up on his screen within seconds, your paragraphs, your emojis, your warmth pouring through the phone. When your reply takes hours instead of minutes, even if it's calm and kind, something inside him twitches. Wait, why isn't she jumping like before? He may not say it, but he feels it. The auto-validation he's been drinking like water has slowed down. The reflex he relied on, I text, she melts, isn't guaranteed anymore. That's not you playing games. That's you living your actual life instead of sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for him to remember you exist. His ego feels the absence of immediate reward, and for the first time, it has to process the reality that your attention is not a right, it's a response. Then you stop rewarding lazy last-minute effort. He hits you with, "What are you doing tonight? Let's meet." After giving you nothing all week, and instead of scrambling to rearrange your plans, you say, "I'm busy, maybe next time. I need more notice." Those words might sound simple, but they land like a shock to a man who's used to being the axis of your schedule. His ego is used to walking in at any hour and finding you waiting emotionally. Now he's bumping into a boundary, not a wall made of anger, but a firm line made of self-value. It hurts his pride because it tells him, without a lecture, my time is not a toy. If you want access to me, you have to respect that I have a life. That sting is important. It is the beginning of him realizing that effort matters. He may test you at first. He might double text, call, accuse you of being different, say, "You've changed," or try to guilt you with, "You used to be so supportive." That's his ego mourning the loss of royalty treatment while acting like a guest. But underneath that pushback, something else is happening that he doesn't want to admit. His respect for you is rising. He is realizing that you are not a girl he can keep on the shelf and pull down whenever he's bored. You are a woman whose presence must be prioritized, planned for, and honored. He sees that you're not punishing him. You're simply no longer overextending yourself for someone who underextends himself. That clarity is magnetic in a way no people-pleasing ever could be. Slowly, he starts to think ahead. Instead of texting you at midnight, he texts you in the afternoon to ask how your day is going. Instead of assuming you'll say yes, he checks your availability. Are you free this weekend? I'd like to see you. He starts to show up on time, communicate more clearly, follow through on what he says, because your new behavior has taught him a deep lesson. If I want continued access to her, I have to act like a man who deserves it. That lesson only lands because you stopped cushioning him from the consequences of his own inconsistency. His ego might still hate being told no sometimes, but his deeper self feels safer with you because he knows you are anchored in self-respect, not just in desire. You become, in his mind, not just someone who loves him, but someone he can't easily replace. Anyone can be endlessly available. Anyone can sacrifice their own plans, needs, and feelings to keep a man comfortable. That's not rare, that's common. What is rare is a woman who can love with her whole heart and still say, "No, this doesn't work for me." A woman who can feel the butterflies and still keep her backbone. Every time you stop dropping everything for him, every time you stop replying instantly, every time you refuse to reward lazy, last-minute effort, you are sending a steady, powerful message. I am not afraid of you leaving. I am afraid of abandoning myself. His ego will feel the sting, but his respect will grow quietly in the background. And if he is capable of real love, that respect will become the foundation of a far deeper, truer obsession than anything desperation could ever create. For a long time, you were taught that loving someone meant prioritizing their comfort over your own soul. You learned to read his moods more carefully than your own. You learned to calm him, soothe him, regulate him, excuse him. You learned how to walk on eggshells so he wouldn't shut down, get angry, or disappear. You thought that if you could just keep him calm, if you could just keep him comfortable, then he would stay, then he would choose you, then this time it would finally work. What nobody told you is that every time you protected his comfort at the expense of your own truth, you were training him. You weren't just loving him, you were teaching him how to love you badly and still have access to you. You were teaching him that you're the woman who will lower the bar for him, even when it breaks you. Shifting your loyalty from his comfort to your own soul is not about becoming selfish, cold, or uncaring. It's about finally asking, what is the cost of constantly softening myself so he never has to feel uncomfortable? The cost is you, your joy, your sleep, your self-worth, your voice, your boundaries, your sense of what is normal. You start normalizing things that are not normal, being ignored for days, being half-chosen, being last minute, being lied to, being treated like a convenience instead of a partner. And each time you accept it, you send him a message. This is enough for me. Keep doing it. I will stay. That's how you train a man to love you poorly, not in one big moment, but in 1,000 little allowances, 1,000 silences, 1,000 it's okays that were not okay at all. The secret is not to pretend you don't care. Pretending always leaks. The secret is to actually care more about your inner alignment than about whether he thinks you're the cool, low-maintenance, always available girl. Loyal to your soul means you stop abandoning what you know in your body just to keep the peace in the relationship. When your body tightens because something feels off, you don't gaslight yourself and say, "I'm crazy, I'm insecure." You listen. When your heart breaks because his actions don't match his words, you don't paste on a smile and say, "He's just stressed, it's fine." You tell yourself the truth. This hurts because I deserve better than this inconsistency. That shift is internal first. Before you ever speak to him differently, you start speaking to yourself differently. You stop calling your standards needy. You stop calling your boundaries too much. You start calling them what they are, protection. Refusing to train a man to love you poorly shows up in very simple, powerful choices. When he disappears and comes back like nothing happened, you don't slide back into the old rhythm as if you weren't crying 2 days ago. You either address it directly, "That pattern doesn't work for me," or you quietly reduce his level of access to you. When he gives you crumbs of attention, you don't bake a whole cake out of them in your mind and shower him with a feast in return. You match energy with energy. Not as a game, but as a reflection of reality. If he texts you once a week with dry, low-effort messages, he doesn't get daily emotional intimacy from you. If he treats you like a sometimes option, he doesn't get all the time benefits. You stop doing the emotional labor of the relationship for both of you. This doesn't mean you become rigid and closed. It means your softness finally has a spine. You can still be nurturing, playful, romantic, but not at the cost of your self-respect. You can still forgive, but not without change. You can still be patient, but not indefinitely while he cycles through same behavior. That's what loyalty to your soul looks like in practice. You refuse to participate in dynamics that require you to betray yourself. You refuse to keep explaining the basics of respect to a grown man who benefits from pretending not to understand. You refuse to beg someone to treat you like you treated them without thinking twice. And something powerful happens when you live this way. Men who only wanted comfort, control, and convenience fall off. They will say you've changed. They will call you selfish. They will accuse you of playing games. But pay attention, the only game you stopped playing was the one where you kept losing yourself. The men who are capable of real love will initially feel the discomfort too. The ego pinch of no longer getting everything their way. But instead of blaming you for it, they will adjust. They will rise. They will lean in instead of pulling away every time things get hard. Because now they know something crucial: access to you is not automatic. It's a reflection of how they show up. You don't make a man obsessed with you by breaking yourself to keep him comfortable. You become unforgettable when you are willing to make yourself comfortable in your own life, even if that means he has to face discomfort in his. When you stop over giving for crumbs, you stop teaching him that crumbs are all you require. And the men who stay, the men who step up, the men who look at you with real awe, they are the ones who understand that loving a woman like you is not about being worshipped. It's about being worthy. When you finally decide to stand in your power, you are going to trigger a sorting process you didn't ask for, but desperately need. The men who only ever wanted the version of you who bends, breaks over, gives, and shrinks will start to fall away. Not because you became unlovable, but because you became unmanageable. The wrong men are not attracted to your wholeness. They are attracted to how useful your self-abandonment is to them. When you stop abandoning yourself, you stop being useful to that kind of man. He will say you've changed. He will say you're cold, now selfish, now too independent. Now, all because the old dynamic where he gave the minimum and got the maximum no longer exists. It's not that your love disappeared. It's that you stopped pouring it into someone who refused to hold it with care. You need to understand this clearly so you don't mistake loss for failure. When a man leaves because you develop standards, he didn't leave because you asked for too much. He left because he was committed to giving too little. When he disappears after you set a boundary, it's not a sign that you're hard to love. It's proof that he was only comfortable loving you when you were easy to use. The wrong man thrives in spaces where your fear of being alone is louder than your commitment to yourself. Once that flips, once your sense of self becomes non-negotiable, he loses his leverage, and he will either lash out, withdraw, or look for someone else who is still willing to trade their identity for fleeting attention. Let him go. His leaving is not the tragedy your staying would have been. The right kind of man reacts very differently to your power. At first, his ego might feel the same sting. He might feel confronted when you say, "No, that doesn't work for me," or when you stop rewarding his inconsistent behavior with constant access. He might feel uncomfortable when he realizes you won't tolerate being half-chosen anymore. But instead of using that discomfort as a reason to attack you, he uses it as information about himself. He doesn't just ask, "Why are you acting like this?" He asks, "Why was I so used to her accepting less from me?" That inner question is a sign you're dealing with someone who has the capacity to grow, not just to consume. A man who is truly capable of loving you fiercely will see your standards not as a threat, but as a call to rise, a call to examine the parts of him that prefer ease over effort, short-term gratification over long-term depth. He will notice that you do not stick around for empty promises anymore. He will see that when his actions and words don't match, you don't argue for his potential, you adjust your availability. He will understand, sometimes with a jolt, that you are not performing strength, you are living it. That if he wants to stand next to you, he has to bring more than charm. He has to bring consistency, accountability, and emotional presence. What makes you magnetic to the right man is exactly what makes you too much. For the wrong one, you are a woman he cannot keep without growing. You are not a soft couch he can collapse on while refusing to deal with his own baggage. You are a mirror. You reflect his greatness back to him, but you also reflect his avoidance, his excuses, his laziness. You do it not with cruelty, but with clarity. You stop accepting apologies that aren't followed by change. You stop giving second chances to patterns that have already shown you their outcome. You stop carrying the emotional load of two people while he coasts on your effort. Standing in that kind of truth will make some men deeply uncomfortable, but it will make the right man deeply committed. He will start to pay attention in ways he never had to before. He will think about how his decisions impact you. He will respect your time, your boundaries, your body, your mind. He will understand that love is not just about feeling drawn to you. It is about being willing to do what it takes to keep something rare and extraordinary in his life. He will stop seeing you as an option and start seeing you as a choice he has to remake every day through his behavior. And ironically, that is when his love feels more obsessed, more intense, more focused, not because you manipulated him, but because you required him to show up as more than his ego. The right man is not terrified by a woman who can walk away from what dishonors her. He's impressed by her. He knows that if she is willing to walk away from him to stay true to herself, then if she chooses to stay, that choice is real, not born from fear or scarcity. That makes your love more valuable in his eyes, not less. He doesn't want a woman who clings to him out of desperation. He wants a woman who stands next to him out of alignment. When you become that woman, when you finally decide that you will never again betray yourself for temporary closeness, you will watch something beautiful happen. The wrong men will quietly remove themselves, and the right man will draw closer. Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because you finally became someone he cannot keep without becoming the man he was always meant to be.